The Wagering Zone. Welcome into the Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live from Denver, Colorado on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your ba- podcast platforms, such as Spotify and also Apple Podcasts, or perhaps Google Podcasts might be your favorite. But any one of those, you can catch the show on any time of the day or night. But right now, we're coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, also on Blackjack Television, and also on milehighradio.com out in the Colorado. So thank you very much for listening. Got a lot to talk about today. Of course, we got the NBA draft coming up tonight. So we're going to take a look at some of the odds on the progression and which players are going to be picked and what position. Kind of give you what the odds are on those. So in case you're thinking of making a side bet, might be something you want to look at. We also have two games we're going to take a look at as far as line movement is concerned and in which direction the pros are thinking. We got the Yankees against Tampa. We have the Chicago White Sox against Kansas City. We're also going to update you as to how well the system is doing or how bad it's doing in the month of July so far. We'll bring you up to date on those stats. And of course, we're also going to be taking a look at our winning and losing streaks. We had the swagger theory come into play yesterday. We'll tell you how that worked out as well. So, anyway, thank you very much for listening. Just want to let you know you're listening to the Sports Wagering Zone right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, right here live from Denver, Colorado. Yes, we are. Anyway, let's first of all, as we always do, let's take a look at what happened yesterday as far as betting was concerned. Only one sport really to report on. I know the Olympics are going on, but there's not much action as far as betting is concerned there, and it's kind of complicated as well. So let's take a look at Major League Baseball for yesterday. The favorites, as usual, they went 9-6 on the schedule yesterday, with the Tigers being a plus 122 on the money line, upsetting the Twins in a looked like a football score 17-14. A lot of runs being scored in a short period of time. But the biggest upset was by the Royals, a plus 160 against the White Sox. The favorite still happen to lead so far this season. They're at 58.3%. As far as the overs and unders, the overs went 8, 6, and 1 yesterday. You had a push. And when I say push, we're talking about Las Vegas. The Reds Cubs game was at 10. That was a push. Now, of course, the overs now still have that slim lead. They're at 50.4% as far as that is concerned. So that's the story on everything that happened yesterday as far as wagering was concerned. Because you only have baseball going right now, that's worth looking at. There's basketball's finished, but we're getting ready for the NFL season coming up soon. So we're going to start concentrating and putting all our thoughts and ideas into that direction. But in the meantime, today, like we said, it's NBA Draft Day. The 2021 draft takes place tonight. It's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern Time out there in Brooklyn over at Barclays Center. Now, Cade Cunningham of Oklahoma State, he's still on top. He's at a minus $5,000 on the money line. He's the favorite to be the first player drafted overall. Now, that number of minus 5,000 comes out of BetMGM. Now, you got to look at it this way. That line is so high that there's really no value in betting. I mean, if you want to bet $5,000 to win $100, as sure as that may seem, there's always that possibility that anything can happen. It could be a last second trade. Somebody moves up because they want to pick somebody else. And of course, then you're out of $5,000. So it's kind of a good idea. Forget about that one. Sit back, let that one go by because you have to risk so much to get so little back. And of course, it's not worth it as far as we're concerned. Now, instead, here's a couple more affordable props. that have really made some changes as far as the line movement is concerned. The second pick is Jalen Green. He was a minus 200. He has now stepped up to minus 400 on the money line. To be picked third, you have Evan Mobley. He was a minus 175 on the money line. He moved up to minus 275 on the money line to be picked third. To be picked fourth is Jalen Suggs, who was a minus 160. He moved up to being a minus 200. And then, as far as the fifth pick was concerned, Scotty Barnes, who was at minus 135, is now up to 250. Now, if you want to, you can also bet what we call exact order to take Cunningham first, Green second, Mobley third. That was at minus 250, has now gone up to minus 400. So you can bet exact order, as they call it. If you take Cunningham, Green, and Mobley, you got to lay 400 on the money line for that combination. So those are the changes as far as those selections, the top five are concerned. And of course, they're all in the minus column. Each one has moved up drastically in the situation. So that's the story there. So we're going to take a break. And of course, when we do come back, we're going to be talking about the main sport in progress right now, and that's Major League Baseball. There's two games we're going to take a close look at, kind of give you an idea as to what the early line movement is and also in which direction the pros are going. We got the Yankees against Tampa Bay and the Chicago White Sox against Kansas City. So, just to give you an idea and a thought, if you want to get a hold of us here at the Sports Wagering Zone, not very difficult. Just send an email. Send it to the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. If you have any questions, you have any comments about the show, be more than happy to hear from you at any time. That's the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. Also, we're going to take a break. And as you know, if you've listened to us before, we take 3 breaks in the show. Each one is of a 1-minute duration. So if that's the case, we'll be back into the Sports Wagering Zone in 1 minute. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. We're coming to you live from Denver, Colorado on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as most of your major podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, you name it. We're on most of the major podcasts as well. So we talked about the NBA draft coming up tonight. Went over some numbers for you, give you an idea as to what it's going. And if you want to lay that kind of juice, that's fine. As far as I'm concerned, if I would be interested in watching the draft, just sit back, relax, watch, and see what happens. Don't want to lay no $400 or $275 to win $100. That's for sure. Anyway, let's take a look at Major League Baseball. We have 11 games on tap for today, but we're going to take a close look at 2 of those games to see how the money's flowing, give you an idea of which direction the line movement is going. And of course, once we determine that, we'll be able to tell you which direction the pros are going. Now, what do you do with that information? that's totally up to you. If you already use a system that you're very happy with, by all means, maybe you're looking at the Yankees Tampa Bay game and you kind of maybe you think it's a toss up or you're leaning in one direction or another, but you're certainly not sure. So you're going to hear what the pros are going, which direction they're going. They may help you decide in which direction to go as well. But otherwise, let's look. It's an early game. It's a 1 o'clock game this afternoon. You got the New York Yankees. They're at 53 and 47. They're at Tampa. Tampa 60 and 42. Now, the Yankees, they came up with a big win for the pros yesterday, especially in this series. They won both games as contrarian underdogs. You don't get that kind of number often when it comes to the Yankees because of the hype that comes out because they are the Yankees, of course. New York won that opening game 4-3. They were plus 125 road dogs in that game, and they won again yesterday 3-1 as plus 120 road dogs. Now, in this early afternoon finale, the Yankees come in with their ace Garrett Cole. He's 10-5 with a 2.74 ERA. And the Rays, they come back with their righty, Luis Patino. He's 1-2 with a 5.26 ERA. Now, as we look at the line in this game, it opened with the Yankees, a minus 140 road favorite at the open, and Tampa Bay, a plus 130 home dog. Now, the public, of course, they're all over the Yankees. They got their ace on the mound today. But you know what? Despite all this, all the tickets and the lopsided betting that's coming in on the Yankees, we saw their number drop from being a minus 140 to a minus 135. And what that usually means is what we call that a reverse aligned movement, and it's on the home dog, the Tampa Rays. They went from being a plus 130 to a plus 125. So Tampa Bay has value. They're a contrarian divisional dog now. Their home dogs have gone 245 and 290 so far this season, only cashing in at little over 45%, but producing roughly, well, maybe 20 units, mainly because of the money payouts. And we've talked about this before, how when you bet on an underdog, you're laying 100, sometimes to win 130, 140, 150. Whereas on betting on a favorite, you're laying that 120, 30, 40, 50 just to win 100. So by winning on the dog side, you can become ahead. There's no problem there. We've gone into detail about that before. We'll talk about it in days to come as well. So we call this a sharp reverse line movement. Tampa Bay has value. They're a contrarian divisional dog. And like we said, they've been cashing in at almost 46% this season. But again, when you take into consideration that they are underdogs, they're plus 20 units because of the payouts on the money. We could also be looking at another low scoring game. The total opened at 8, and the pro money has dropped it down to 7.5. The under is 2-0 so far this series, and historically, the unders have been a smart bet, especially in domed or closed stadiums, because the ball doesn't travel and the conditions are really perfect for pitchers and for the fielders as well. So in this particular series, in this game, the general public, they're on the New York Yankees. The pros, they're going with the underdog in this game, the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, that's the story of the first game. It's a 1 o'clock game. There's also a 2 o'clock game. You got the Chicago White Sox against the Kansas City Royals. The White Sox are 60 and 42. Kansas City is 44 and 56. Now, the Royals have won 2 of the first 3 games in this series, including that 3-2 walk-off win in extra innings last night. They were plus 160 home dogs in that game. Now, in this afternoon finale, the White Sox come in with their lefty, Carlos Rodon. He's 8-4 with a 2.24 ERA. The Royals going with their right-hander, Carlos Hernandez, who is 1-1 with a 6.04 ERA. Now, as we look at the line on this game, open with Chicago, a big minus 170 on the money line as the road favorite, and Kansas City is a plus 160 home dog. Now, there seems to be agreement by the professionals in this game and the general public. They're both united in favor of Chicago, and they expect Chicago to come back with the big starting pitching advantage that they have going in. Now, the lopsided support has driven the Chicago team up from being a minus 170 up to being minus 180 on the money line. The White Sox are 27-14, which is almost 66% whenever they play a game after they lose. So they're at 66% in games that they play as a favorite after they lose a game. Chicago was 52-24 as a favorite. Kansas City, they're 22-40 as a dog. The pros are also eyeing this lower scoring game as well. The total opened at 10, and the under is being juiced to minus 115. So it looks like it might even be trending down to maybe even 9.5 or even 9. The under so far in this series is 3-0. So for the two games on tap for today, they're early afternoon games. At 1 o'clock, you have the Yankees against Tampa Bay. In this particular game, the general public are on the New York Yankees to come back and win the third game in this series. And meanwhile, Tampa Bay is the underdog, but Tampa Bay is the choice of the professional bettors. At 2 o'clock, you have the White Sox against the Kansas City Royals. But here, not only the pros, but also the general public, they all agree on the same team. They're all betting on the Chicago White Sox to come back and kind of get back to their winning ways, as they say, and come back again as well and win this game. So that's the story on the two games that we have on tap for today that we wanted to talk about. So let's take our break, our second break. We'll get that out of the way. When we come back, take a look and see how well this little method system, whatever you want to call it, is going on. And we're also going to be talking about winning and losing streaks, how they've been working out so far this week so far. So that's the story. We'll be back into the zone, as we say, as always, within 60 seconds. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening. Totally appreciate your listening to the show. Try to do the best we can to try to bring you up to date on various ways of wagering and betting. Maybe we may not be familiar with some of them. We try to let you know about them. But as always, we don't try to push them onto you. The whole idea is we let you know what's available. And then if you're interested in going that way, by all means, go right ahead. And if not, then that's good as well. Now, again, if you've listened to the show before, you know we've been doing a system that started in April, right at the beginning of the season, in which we follow the line of movement in certain games that are scheduled for the day. And of course, by following that line movement, you can then determine in which direction the professional bettors are betting. Now, historically, through decades of time, okay, not just this year, last year, or the past couple of years, the past 5 years or so, it's more than that, that they kind of in that 58, 59, 60% area as far as winning percentages are concerned. Now, you may say, well, gee, that doesn't seem like a lot. How can they be making a lot of money doing it that way if that's all they're doing for a living? Well, it's very simple. Where you're betting $50 or $25 or $100, they're betting thousands of dollars. So if you come up with a 60% win percentage, all you have to do is win 60% of the time, bet big money, and you're going to make money for yourself as well. Now, conversely, if you're a $50, $100 better or whatever, you're going to make relatively the same percentage as far as return on investment is concerned. So we kind of follow them. Now, they're not always right, like we said. They're right 60% of the time, but they're wrong 40% of the time. So the way we look at it is we tell you which direction they're going, and sometimes they get into a tailspin where they've lost 3 or 4 games in a row, or perhaps they're on a winning streak where they've won 3 or 4 games in a row. So we leave it up to you to decide how to determine what that means. Does it mean that it'll continue on downward, or will it continue on upward, or will there be a kind of a change coming in at that point in time? But by taking this information along with whatever else you've been using, it might be of some help to you in determining who to bet on in certain games. So, yesterday we did have 3 plays. One of the plays was postponed. Washington and Philadelphia, the game was canceled because postponed, actually not canceled, but postponed, put back to another time. Probably be a doubleheader coming up soon. But Washington comes out with some COVID problems. So, of course, the game was postponed. We also had the Houston Seattle game. In that game, the pros had Seattle. However, Houston won handily, and that was a loser. But they had the Yankees against Tampa. The pros had the Yankees, so they had the winner in that particular situation. So we had 2 plays yesterday, 1 win, 1 loss. The day before that, we had 3 plays, 2 wins and 1 loss. The day before that, we had 2 plays, both losses. And then the day before that, if you want to go back further, we had 2 wins and 1 loss as well. So right now, the way it stands, out of all the plays so far in the month of July, a couple more months, a couple more days to go, we had a total of 55 plays. And out of those 55 plays, we had 28 winners. So that comes out to a little over 50% average as well. So, and again, understanding that with baseball, especially with some underdogs, where they do play underdogs, they don't just play the favorites. You'll be ahead of the game if you follow them all season long at this point in time. And of course, yesterday we were talking about the winning and losing streaks. And of course, coming into play yesterday was what we call the swagger theory, which generally says that during a losing streak, once a team comes to the end of that losing streak and wins, they generally win the next game. And if they're on a winning streak, they come back and generally they lose their next game. Well, that didn't work out that way yesterday. Actually, totally the opposite way. You had Texas, who was supposed to win, and they lost because they were coming off a losing streak. Kansas City, who was coming off a winning streak that lost, and then they should have lost again, but they didn't because of that walk-off home run 11 innings. Again, big upset. Kansas City wound up winning that game. So you see, it isn't always right. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But generally, over a long period of time, you just can't take 1 week or 1 month into play and say, oh, that's it. That's not working. So I don't want to have anything to do with it. No, you have to look at it over a longer period of time. So that's the story as far as those games are concerned. We're going to take our final break. And when we come back, we're going to take a quick look and talk about the Dodgers and the Giants out on the West Coast and kind of take a close look and see how those situations are working out. We'll be back into the zone in 1 minute. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. Coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as on most of your major podcast platforms, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it, we're there. So we talked about the two games on tap for today. We'll cover those again before we go off the air. But I want to talk about the Dodgers because we kind of still think that the Dodgers are still the best bet to win out of the National League, to win out into the West. So if you had polled, say, 100 baseball analysts back in March, before the season started, you'd be surprised, and I'd be surprised anyway, if you found even one who would have picked the San Francisco Giants to win the National League West outright. Okay. And yet, hey, here we are, nearly into August. Giants are on top of the division. They lead the Major League Baseball with a winning percentage of 6.26. And they came into Monday's games, 2 games up on the Dodgers, 5.5 up on San Diego. And yet, if you ask those same 100 analysts once again, I bet you they probably, maybe one or two, maybe a few more, would switch their money to the Giants. Most of them would be staying with the Dodgers because the betting markets, if you look at the numbers, they certainly aren't buying into the fact that the Giants are going to win the West. They've only the fifth best odds, and we're talking at BetMGM. They're at 5-1 to win the West at BetMGM and to win the National League pennant. Now, behind the Dodgers, who are at a plus 170, and the Padres, who are at 9-2 to win it all. So here's the deal. Even at those odds, okay, according to some projection systems, especially the Bat X system, the Giants are projected to win only the ninth most games in the National League over the rest of the season. So the projections at Fangraphs, they're a little more optimistic, putting them at seventh most. So why does everyone hate the Giants? Well, it's simply because they're overperforming any reasonable expectation almost across the board, totally. Buster Posey, he's having the second best season of his career, and he's 34 years old. Brandon Crawford, he's 34. He's having his best career day and year. Now, these aren't realistic outcomes if you look at them, and they can't be expected to continue on. Posey and Crawford and a few others almost they just have to get worse. They're so far over their head right now. And historically, players with late career, mid year spikes like this one, they really don't keep up in the total situation. So, despite what may well be a mediocre limp down the stretch, San Francisco is still projected to beat San Diego. Now, if we were starting from scratch, the Padres would project to win 9 more games than San Francisco over 162 games. But as it stands, they have 3 fewer games left to play, which will make climbing out of their hole a lot more difficult. Now, I hate betting favorites. It's boring, feels like a cop out, I know. But if you're making a bet on the National League West, you got to bet on the Dodgers. They're a minus 225 to win the division, and that implies a 69% chance to win. But their true odds are in the low to mid 70s range, according to BatX. It gives them a 78% chance. So if you want a better payout, you can still get them at plus 170 to win the National League, or a plus 375 on the money line to win the World Series as well. Now, over a full 162 games, they'd project 7 wins better than the second best team in Major League Baseball, who happens to be Houston, even with their current injuries that they have. They're simply so much better than anybody else, and by October, they ought to be much healthier than they are right now. Now, we all know the Dodgers are great, And the answer doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. They're great. Still a good bet to bet, and probably thoughts that we have on it, looking at the various different projections and things of that nature, because we're more analytical here than we are emotional. So right now, looks like the Giants, they've been hanging in there for quite a while, but it seems to us they're playing well over their heads. At some point in time, that will kind of slow down, come to an end, and come October, the Dodgers should be up there in first place. So that's the story there. Little help. Hopefully, it'll help you if you're thinking about throwing in some late money into the contest right now. In the meantime, the two games on tap for today, we got the Yankees against Tampa Bay. And in that particular game, the pros are on Tampa, the underdog, to beat the Yankees. The Yankees have won two straight games so far in this series. The Chicago White Sox against Kansas City. In that game, not only the pros, but also the general public are all on the Chicago White Sox to kind of bounce back and get back on their winning ways as well. So that's the story. Today is Thursday. You got the NBA draft up tonight. Sit back, relax, enjoy it. Have a really great Thursday. And if you're going to be betting on any teams today, I certainly hope you have a profitable Thursday as well. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time, Saturdays and Sundays, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So thank you again for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow at 12 noon, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as, again, most of your major podcast platforms as well. So have a great Thursday. And like I said, if you're betting, I hope you have a profitable Thursday as well. Take a look at those Dodgers. Looking good. I know right now the Giants are looking better, but like we said, things may change come October. I think you still find the Dodgers on top. So thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow at 12 noon on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. I'm Chris Pardo coming to you live from Denver, Colorado. Thank you and have a very great and profitable Thursday as well. Goodbye, everybody.